Nobody really likes to swim or fish in slimy green water.
50% of the time the water's clean enough for primary contact. The other 50% of the time, it's not.
There's about 40 street drains that empty into the pond.
I saw incredible just green scum over the top of the water.
These are issues that impact every community.
Most of our shopping is actually done at Whole Foods because we're into organic food and eco-friendly products. Here we've got the earth-friendly glass cleaner and the earth-friendly all-purpose cleaner. And then kind of tucked behind that we've got our Cascade.
Whenever we have family come into town who have a card, we go to Costco because it's cheaper to get things there. That's the dilemma of modern life. Always trying to make decisions about trade-offs between costs and, you know, your knowledge of what's better to do for the environment. Both of us have a background in environmental stuff, so we actually do know a little bit about the negative effects of the non-eco-friendly cleaners. The phosphorus in here is not very biodegradable, and somehow, what were we saying, it like increases the
something about
BOD.
We're trying to
remember what the
college.
B stands for, biological something oxygen demand, which is a problem for the
right. And so algae can thrive, and something about anaerobic respiration
and eutrophication something.
We're looking at not only phosphorus, but also nitrogen, bacteria, dissolved oxygen levels to sort of formulate a holistic idea of what's going on in the watershed. Phosphorus is an essential component of all living things, plants and animals, and so it is naturally found in any aquatic ecosystem. Phosphorus is sort of a limiting nutrient in freshwater ecosystems, which means when there's too much phosphorus, then you have an excess of plant growth in the water. And when you have too much plant growth, this process is known as eutrophication, and you can see degraded water quality.
You have the result of runoff with oil from cars on the roadways, the dog poop that people don't pick up, the chemicals and degreasing agents and detergents that are in soaps when people wash their cars out in the streets, all get washed into the river. In the Mystic River, we have a number of CSOs, combined sewer overflows. Within one pipe, you have two inverts, one for drainage and one for sewage. And when the rain starts raining real heavy, and there's a lot of impervious surface, or surface that doesn't allow the rain to soak into the ground, that impervious surface causes that water to sheet up and flow very fast and in great volume into these inverts. It fills up the pipe, and the sewage and the drainage mix and go out the drainage outfall instead of out the sewage outfall to Deer Island.
Overall, phosphorus levels are really high in the Mystic watershed. The more data we have about what the state of water quality is in the watershed, the better equipped we are to identify solutions.
Knock it a couple times to get some of the bubbles up.
We will process the samples, add the nutrient media to each of the water samples, and then incubate the samples overnight.
And now it's heat sealed, and all of these little wells down at the bottom and these bigger wells up on the top are all sealed. So each is a separate container for bacteria to grow and be happy, thrive.
Ooh, these are my samples. This is where we were yesterday. Really dirty water. Some types of cyanobacteria or blue-green algae are also toxic when ingested by humans and dogs and other animals. So we're definitely seeing a public health issue with phosphorus pollution as well.
I was successful this year in getting through both the House and Senate and signed by the governor legislation that will phase out. By 2010, you will no longer see the phosphates in dishwashing soaps. We had great resistance for a period of time from the various producers of dishwashing soaps, contending that it was a public health issue, and therefore it was a difficult thing to just move ahead on. So it's been sort of an ongoing, let's keep their feet to the fire and make sure that they really make efforts to develop an alternative that's safer. Sometimes you have to pass something that, they don't like, and just give them enough time to get it done. And sometimes you pass something they don't like and don't give them any time. But in this case, we sort of worked with them as we went along. So, removing phosphorus from dishwashing detergent is really just a small part of the problem, and we're very cognizant that there are other uses that need to be reduced, particularly in the what you put on your lawn.
We've been distributing a flyer like this probably for 10 years or so. And we distribute it to everybody in the watershed, in the Spy Pond watershed. And the purpose of it is to encourage them not to use a heavy phosphorus lawn fertilizer. And what we're trying to prevent is the nutrients going into the pond that will foster weed growth. And it's primarily the phosphorus from lawns and the junk from the storm drains that also gets into the pond. Matter of fact, on each of the storm drains, we have a little tag that says, "Do not dump, drain goes to Spy Pond," something like that. We're trying to get to days like today, which is so nice, where people are going out and they're beginning to fertilize their lawn and they're beginning to kill the weeds. And we'd like them to have had a chance to look at that flyer before they do so. And, prompt their civic, environmental, their green consciousness before they, start loading that stuff on their lawns. But, as a result of the flyer, reduced the amount of fertilizer on their lawn? Who knows? I don't know.
We're kind of in the northern Boston area, but we've done hundreds of soil samples across probably 25, 30 different towns that we service. When you do a soil sampling, you're basically going to anywhere from 5 to 15 different spots around the property, send it to a lab, and it goes through an analysis. Now when the analysis comes back, they're basically looking at the soil chemistry. This is phosphorus, so in this case you can see it's very high. So the bottom line is there's plenty of phosphorus available in the soils of Massachusetts right now. Why buy a fertilizer with phosphorus in it if your lawn and your soil type doesn't require phosphorus? For treatments that we're doing right now, we're using a 1906, so we literally have no phosphorus going out on these properties. If you're going to apply fertilizer to your own lawn and you have storm drains on the street or a watershed or a river or something, the most important thing to do is to understand that some of those nutrients are going to move. The homeowner can think more is better, when the reality is that a lot of that extra that's not used by the plant at that time in the season washes through the soil. A 20-foot buffer is very common, so at least having a 20-foot span of distance between the edge of where you treat and that water is important. If you're going to go and you're going to treat the edge of your property, you're going to put some granules onto the street. So the idea would be to blow or sweep or move that product back into the lawn where it can be used, otherwise it'll run down the street. If you're going to use a synthetic fertilizer like we've been kind of talking about, that middle number on a bag, look for the lowest one you can find.
When I got here in '85, I completely fell in love with it. I just felt like me and this pond are like soulmates, you know, and so it was gorgeous. I used to go down to, on a sunny Saturday afternoon, I'd popsicle and a novel, and I would go down without a towel and throw myself on the grass in the late '80s. Okay, a few years later, you so would not want to do that. You didn't even want to put down a picnic blanket, because when you picked up your blanket, it would be disgusting. When in the '80s, the goose population was about 12, and the water was clear. What you would see when you looked out over the water was the beautiful water, the beautiful reflections. Gradually, the weeds got more and more. Gradually, the geese got more and more. Everyone was feeding the geese on a sunny afternoon in the summer. There'd be like 50 families with kids bringing their leftover Wonder Bread, which is terrible food for geese, by the way. Spy Pond was eutrophying very, very fast in the '90s and early parts of this decade. And it's not just our fertilizer, but goose poop, you know, animal waste was a major contributor to why the pond was eutrophying so fast. We've done public education, especially with kids, about why it's a bad idea to feed geese, and so the feeding has gone way down. Different kinds of plants have been planted so that there's less grass, less plant that's delicious to them. The fence helps make them not think of Spy Pond Park as their place to come and eat. And then, of course, we put a coyote, a fiberglass coyote, by the water. Okay, Marilyn. All right, let's take the coyote down to the park. If you move the fiberglass coyote frequently, geese will think there's a predator around. We never for a minute thought that our year-round geese would be fooled by this, because, you know, they can come pretty close to it and see that it's not real, and also they're completely fearless. You're supposed to be scared. But every spring and fall, the migrating geese, we hear them. If geese that are coming and looking for place, either for the day or for the season, see that, oh, look, there's a coyote in the bushes, they will veer away. And I think I saw this shortly after the coyote was placed for the first time. I saw a bunch of geese come in and then veer away again. Obviously I can't prove that that's why, but I saw some flying geese veer away. And we did have a much smaller goose population last summer.
Even if most of the phosphorus was cleaned up from the system, it would take 200 or 300 years for phosphorus to cycle out of the system and get cleaned up. Yeah, no quick fix, unfortunately.